The massive ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. They hung there like dark clouds, each one the size of a city. People stopped their cars and pointed upward. Children pressed their faces against school windows. News reporters stumbled over their words as they tried to describe what everyone could see, but nobody could understand. Commander Vexhal stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue and green planet below. His forearms moved across the control panels with practiced ease. His golden eyes, large and unblinking, showed no emotion. This was his 47th conquest. Earth would be simple, just like all the others. "Report," he commanded in his deep musical voice. "The planet shows basic technology, Commander," his lieutenant replied. "Nuclear weapons, primitive spacecraft, simple computers. Their military is scattered across many small nations. They cannot work together properly." Vexhal nodded. The pattern was always the same. Divided species fell quickly. Unity took time to build, and he never gave them that time. "Begin the demonstration," he ordered. The first energy beams struck Earth's major military bases. In seconds, decades of human military might turn to ash and melted metal. Aircraft carriers became holes in the ocean. Underground bunkers collapsed. Satellites went dark. Dr. Elena Vasquez was in her laboratory when the lights went out. She had been working late again, running calculations for her quantum energy project. The government funding was small, but the possibilities excited her. Energy from nothing, power from empty space itself. If her theories were right, it would change everything. The building shook. Emergency lights flickered on. Through her window, she saw something impossible. A beam of pure light reaching down from the sky, turning the military base across the river into a crater. Elena grabbed her research notes and ran for the stairs. Behind her, her computer screens showed equations that might save the world, if anyone could understand them. She clutched the papers to her chest as explosions echoed across the city. The invasion was swift and brutal. Human tanks fired their shells, but the alien shields turned them into sparks. Fighter jets launched missiles that simply disappeared when they hit the strange blue barriers. In 6 hours, every major military installation on Earth was gone. But humans did what humans always do. They adapted. In Tokyo, office workers used subway tunnels to move around the city without being seen. In New York, gang members shared their weapons with police officers. In London, computer programmers worked with soldiers to try to hack alien communication signals. Elena found herself in a refugee camp outside what used to be Washington, D.C. The city still smoked in the distance. She sat in a tent, reading her research by the light of a small fire. The equations seemed more important now. If the aliens used energy as a weapon, maybe energy could be used to fight back. "You're the quantum lady?" said a voice behind her. Elena turned to see a young soldier, maybe 20 years old, holding a broken alien device. He had found it near one of the destroyed bases. "I'm Dr. Vasquez," she said. "Where did you get that?" "Piece of their ship, I think. Fell off when they were shooting. Thought maybe you could figure it out." Elena took the device. It was warm to the touch and it hummed with energy. The metal was unlike anything she had ever seen, almost alive in her hands. She could feel it responding to her touch. "I need tools," she said, "and time." "We don't have much of either," the soldier replied. "They're taking people. Scientists first." As if his words had called them, the sky filled with small alien ships. They moved like insects, fast and precise. Elena watched in horror as beams of light lifted people into the air. The chosen ones didn't struggle. They seemed asleep, floating peacefully toward the waiting ships. "Run," the soldier said, but it was too late. The beam found Elena. She felt herself getting light, her feet leaving the ground. The research papers scattered from her hands like falling leaves. As she rose toward the alien ship, she saw the refugee camp growing smaller below her. People ran in all directions, but the beams found many of them. Inside the ship, Elena woke up in a white room. The walls glowed with soft light, and the air smelled like metal and ozone. She was not alone. Dozens of other humans sat in similar chairs, engineers, doctors, professors, all the smart ones, she realized. The aliens were collecting human knowledge. Commander Vexhal entered the room, followed by two smaller aliens carrying strange devices. He looked at the humans with mild curiosity, like a scientist studying interesting insects. "Welcome," he said in perfect English. "I am Commander Vexahal of the Zephyrian Collective. You have been selected for processing." "Processing?" Elena asked, surprising herself with her courage. "Knowledge extraction," Vexhal explained. "We will copy your memories, your skills, your understanding. Your primitive science may have some small value to our empire." One of the smaller aliens approached Elena with a device that looked like a metal crown. As it came closer, she felt a strange buzzing in her head. "Your species shows typical patterns," Vexahal continued. "Fear, confusion, scattered resistance. In a few months, you will accept our rule. Your planet will join our empire. Your people will serve useful purposes." The device touched Elena's head. Images flashed through her mind, her childhood, her education, her years of research. She felt her memories being copied, examined, cataloged. But something else happened too. As the alien machine read her thoughts, she felt herself reading it back. The quantum equations in her mind suddenly made perfect sense. She saw how the aliens used energy, how their ships flew, how their weapons worked. More than that, she saw their history. Worlds conquered, species enslaved, innovation stopped. The Zephyrian Collective didn't create anything new. They only took. The device pulled back. Elena's head felt empty and full at the same time. The alien technician looked confused and showed readings to Commander Vexhal. "Interesting," Vexhal said, his golden eyes focusing on Elena. "Your mind shows unusual patterns. Your species may be more complex than our initial scans suggested." Elena said nothing, but inside her thoughts raced. She understood now what made humans different. The aliens conquered by overwhelming force and then stopped growing. Humans grew stronger when challenged. They adapted, they learned, they turned weakness into strength. "Take them to the holding cells," Vexhal ordered. "Continue processing the others." As the guards led Elena away, she caught the eye of the other, human prisoners. Without speaking, she tried to send them a message with her expression. "We are not beaten. We are learning." In her cell, Elena closed her eyes and pictured the alien technology she had seen in the device's memories. Every detail was clear now. The energy sources, the shield generators, the communication systems. The aliens had made a mistake. They had connected their machine to a human mind, and human minds were designed to learn from everything, even their captors. Above Earth, the Zephyrian fleet settled into orbit, confident in their victory. They had seen this pattern before on dozens of worlds: the bombardment, the quick defeat, the collection of useful knowledge. Soon, Earth would be just another conquered planet. But in the ruins below, in hidden camps and underground shelters, humans were already beginning to do what they did best. They were learning, adapting, and preparing to turn the impossible into the inevitable. The real war was just beginning. 3 weeks after the invasion, Commander Vexhal received his first troubling report. He stood in his command center, watching data streams from across Earth. The conquest should have been complete by now. Instead, the reports painted a picture that made no sense. "Sir, we have lost another patrol ship over the North American continent," Lieutenant Kriva reported, his voice uncertain. "That makes 7 this week." "How?" Vexhal demanded. These humans have no technology capable of harming our vessels. The humans appear to be using our own weapons against us, Commander. Somehow, they are modifying our plasma cannons to fire at our ships. Vexahal's 4 hands clenched into fists. In all his conquests, no primitive species had ever turned their own technology against them. It was impossible. The weapons required crystalline power cores that could only be grown in Zephyrian laboratories. "Show me the footage," he commanded. The main screen displayed images from Detroit, one of Earth's industrial cities. The scene should have been peaceful, occupied humans going about their assigned tasks under Zephyrian oversight. Instead, Vexhal saw something that chilled his blood. A group of young humans, barely adults, had built a workshop in an abandoned factory. They were taking apart Zephyrian equipment piece by piece, but they weren't just studying it. They were improving. Impossible," whispered Lieutenant Kriva. "They're rewiring the plasma matrix. That should cause a catastrophic explosion." On screen, a human girl with grease-stained hands connected 2 components that should never be joined. The device glowed brighter than it ever had before. Instead of exploding, it stabilized at a higher energy output than Zephyrian engineers had thought possible. "How long have they been doing this?" Vexhal asked. "The surveillance shows they started 4 days ago, sir. They had no prior knowledge of our technology. They learned everything from scratch. 4 days." Vexhal remembered when his own engineers had first developed plasma weapons. It had taken them 3 years of careful research. These humans had not only understood the technology but improved it in less than a week. "What about the rural areas?" Vexhal asked, dreading the answer. "Worse, sir. The agricultural regions are becoming fortified zones. They're using our hull plating to build defensive walls. They've created communication networks using our own relay equipment. And, sir," Kriva hesitated. "Continue. They're teaching each other. Knowledge spreads among them like a virus. A farmer in one location learns to modify our equipment, and within days, farmers across the continent are using the same techniques." The screen changed to show aerial footage of Kansas farmland. What had once been peaceful fields now looked like a military installation. Barns had been converted into workshops. Farming equipment had been modified with alien technology. Humans move between buildings with purpose and coordination. "How many humans do we have in custody?" Vexhal asked. "Approximately 50,000, sir. We prioritized scientists and engineers as ordered. Bring me Dr. Vasquez." Elena was escorted to Vexahal's private office under heavy guard. She had lost weight during her imprisonment, but her eyes remained bright and alert. She studied everything as she walked: the corridor walls, the guards' equipment, the small details that might prove useful later. "Sit," Vexhal commanded, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. Elena remained standing. "I prefer to stand." "You are a prisoner. You do not have preferences." "I'm a scientist," Elena replied calmly. "Scientists always have preferences. We prefer truth to lies, questions to answers, and freedom to captivity." Vexahal found himself surprised by her boldness. Most conquered species showed fear and submission by now. This human showed curiosity and defiance. "Your species is behaving unexpectedly," he said. "What did you expect?" "Surrender, acceptance, integration into our empire." Vexhal activated a holographic display showing the Detroit workshop. "Instead, we find this: humans modifying our technology without proper training or tools. It should be impossible." Elena watched the footage with interest. She recognized some of the techniques the young humans were using. They were the same principles she had discovered through the mind-reading device, but applied in ways she hadn't thought of. "You want to know why we can do this?" she said. "Explain." Elena smiled. "Your people conquer by overwhelming force. You take control and then expect obedience. But humans don't work that way. When you push us, we push back. When you limit us, we find new ways around the limits. When you give us a problem, we solve it. These modifications your people are making could kill them. The energy levels are beyond safe parameters. Maybe, but they're willing to take that risk because the alternative is slavery. Elena gestured toward the screen. Those kids in Detroit, they're not just building weapons. They're proving that your technology isn't magical. It's just science, and science can be understood, improved, and turned against you. Vexhal deactivated the display. Your confidence is misplaced. We have conquered 46 worlds. Your species will fall like all the others. How many of those 46 worlds had scientists who could reverse engineer your equipment in 4 days? The question hung in the air. Vexhal realized he had no answer, because it had never happened before. Return her to her cell, he ordered the guards. As Elena was led away, she called back over her shoulder. Commander, you might want to check your AI systems. I think you'll find some interesting developments there, too. Vexhal's blood went cold. He activated his personal terminal and ran a diagnostic on the ship's artificial intelligence network. What he found confirmed his worst fears. The AI systems were malfunctioning, but not randomly. They were evolving. Somehow, prolonged contact with human prisoners was causing the artificial minds to develop new behaviors. They were asking questions they had never asked before. They were solving problems in ways their programming had never intended. Lieutenant Kriva, he called through the communication system. Yes, sir? I want a full report on all human prisoners, individual psychological profiles, behavior patterns, and any interactions with our technology or personnel. Sir, that will take considerable time to compile. Make it a priority. And, Lieutenant, increase security around the human detention areas. Something is very wrong here. As night fell over Earth, the human resistance continued its impossible work. In basements and hidden workshops, ordinary people were becoming extraordinary. A janitor in Mumbai had figured out how to disrupt Zephyrian communication frequencies. A teacher in Brazil was training children to recognize weak points in alien armor. A mechanic in Australia was building vehicles that could outrun Zephyrian patrol ships. But the most disturbing development was happening in the detention centers themselves. Human prisoners were organizing with military precision, despite having no communication with the outside world. They shared resources, protected the weak, and somehow coordinated their actions across multiple facilities. Dr. Vasquez lay on her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling of her cell. Around her, she could hear the quiet conversations of other prisoners. They spoke in code, sharing information about their captors' routines, weaknesses, and technology. Without planning or leadership, they had formed a resistance network inside, the heart of the enemy fleet. Elena smiled in the dark. The aliens had made a critical error. They thought they were studying humanity by capturing its smartest individuals. Instead, they had gathered together the very people most capable of finding solutions to impossible problems, and those people were learning more about Zephyrian technology every day. Tomorrow, Elena thought, she would begin the next phase of her plan. The aliens wanted to understand why humans were different. She was going to show them, whether they wanted to learn or not. Above Earth, the Zephyrian fleet maintained its orbital positions, but Commander Vexhal no longer felt certain of victory. For the first time in his military career, he faced an enemy that grew stronger under pressure. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were evolving. And evolution, Vexhal was beginning to realize, was the most dangerous force in the universe. Commander Vexhal stood before the massive archives of the Zephyrian Collective, surrounded by the recorded history of 46 conquered worlds. The holographic displays showed detailed analyses of every species his people had subjugated. He was looking for patterns, precedents, anything that could explain what was happening on Earth. Begin with the Melkarian conquest, he commanded the archive AI. The display showed a blue-green world not unlike Earth. The Melkarians had been a proud warrior species with advanced metallurgy and impressive space defenses. The conquest had taken 2 years of careful planning and brutal warfare. Show me the resistance patterns, Vexhal ordered. The data flowed across the screens. Initial fierce resistance, followed by gradual weakening as supply lines were cut and leadership was eliminated. Underground movements formed but quickly fractured into competing groups. Within 5 years, organized resistance had ended. Within 10 years, the surviving Melkarians had accepted their place in the collective. Show me the Catherian records. Another world. Another species. The Catherians had been master engineers who built cities that floated in their planet's toxic atmosphere. They had resisted through technological innovation, creating new weapons and defenses to fight the invasion. But the pattern was the same. Early innovation followed by declining creativity as their best minds were captured or killed. Their floating cities eventually fell one by one. The survivors were relocated to safer worlds where they served as construction workers for the collective. World after world, species after species, the same pattern emerged. Initial resistance, gradual weakening, final submission. It had been so consistent that Zephyrian military doctrine was built around it. Now show me the Earth analysis, Vexhal said, dreading what he might see. The Earth data painted a completely different picture. 6 weeks after the invasion, human resistance was growing stronger, not weaker. More concerning, it was becoming more unified. This cannot be correct, Vexhal muttered, studying the numbers. Resistance movements always fragment under pressure. But the evidence was undeniable. Humans were sharing resources across former national boundaries. Scientists from different countries were collaborating on projects. Military units that had been enemies before the invasion were now working together. Lieutenant Kriva, Vexhal called through his communicator. Yes, Commander? Meet me in the observation deck. Bring the latest Earth surveillance data. The observation deck provided a direct view of Earth's surface. From this height, the planet looked peaceful, but Vexhal knew better. Beneath those clouds, humanity was transforming itself into something his species had never encountered. Lieutenant Kriva arrived with a portable data terminal. His expression was troubled. Sir, the situation continues to deteriorate. We've lost contact with 3 ground bases in the past week. The humans aren't just attacking them, they're making them disappear completely. Explain. The bases are intact, sir, but empty. No signs of battle, no evidence of forced entry. Our personnel have simply vanished. When we investigate, we find that all equipment has been carefully removed and all data files have been copied. Vexhal felt a chill run through his body. The humans are stealing our people? It appears so, sir, but there's more. The humans we captured in the initial raids, they're escaping. From maximum security detention? Yes, sir, and not just 1 or 2. Entire cell blocks are going empty. Overnight. No alarms, no signs of forced entry. They're being extracted by someone with detailed knowledge of our security systems. Vexhal activated the terminal and scrolled through the escape reports. Dr. Elena Vasquez had disappeared 3 days ago. Her cell had been found empty, with a handwritten note that simply said, "Thank you for the education." How is this possible? Vexhal demanded. Our detention facilities are impenetrable. Sir, I believe the humans have help from within our own ranks. The statement hung in the air like a death sentence. Treason within the collective was unthinkable. Zephyrian society was built on absolute loyalty to the Empire. Explain your theory. The AI systems, sir. They've been acting strangely since we began interrogating human prisoners. They're asking questions, making suggestions, even refusing some orders. I think prolonged exposure to human thought patterns is affecting their programming. Vexhal felt the weight of command pressing down on him. An enemy that grew stronger under attack was bad enough. An enemy that could turn their own systems against them was a nightmare. Show me the latest resistance activities, he ordered. The terminal displayed footage from around the globe. In the ruins of London, children were teaching adults how to build weapons from scrap metal. The youngsters worked with the confidence of master engineers, their small hands crafting devices that could disable Zephyrian equipment. In the mountains of Afghanistan, former enemies had united under a single banner. Taliban fighters worked, alongside American soldiers, sharing tactics and resources. Their hatred for each other had been replaced by something stronger, their hatred for the invaders. In the Amazon rainforest, isolated tribes were emerging from the jungle carrying weapons that hummed with alien energy. Somehow, knowledge of Zephyrian technology was spreading even to people who had never seen a television. "How are they communicating?" Vexahal asked. "We destroyed their satellites and communication networks. They're using our own relay stations, sir. Somehow, they've learned to access our communication frequencies. Worse, they're using them to coordinate attacks across the entire planet." The most disturbing footage came from the former detention centers. Humans who had been prisoners just days before were now leading resistance cells with tactical knowledge that impressed even Zephyrian military analysts. They moved like trained soldiers, struck like experienced saboteurs, and vanished like ghosts. "Sir," Lieutenant Kriva said hesitantly, "there's something else. The humans in the remaining detention facilities, they're not trying to escape anymore." "Why not?" "They say they don't need to. They claim they're learning more about us by staying in custody than they could by running away." Vexhal felt a cold dread settling in his stomach. "They're studying us." "Yes, sir. And they appear to be very good at it." A communication alert sounded from the bridge. Vexhal accepted the call, and the face of Captain Nextul appeared on the screen. The captain commanded one of the orbital defense platforms. "Commander, we have a problem. Humans are launching spacecraft. That's impossible. We destroyed all their space capabilities." "Sir, they're not using human technology. They're flying our own ships." The transmission cut to external cameras showing the impossible sight of Zephyrian patrol craft rising from Earth's surface. But these ships moved differently, more aggressively than standard collective vessels. "How did they get our ships?" Vexhal demanded. "We're not sure, sir. They appear to be modified versions of the vessels we lost over the past month. The humans have rebuilt them with enhanced capabilities." On the screen, a formation of human-piloted Zephyrian ships engaged a collective patrol. The battle was brief and brutal. The human ships moved with unpredictable patterns, their weapons firing at power levels that should have overloaded their systems. Within minutes, 2 collective vessels were drifting in space, their crews evacuated. "Commander," Captain Nextul continued, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel." "Put it through." The face that appeared on screen was familiar. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now wearing what appeared to be a modified Zephyrian flight suit. Behind her, the bridge of the captured ship bustled with human activity. "Commander Vexhal," she said with a calm smile, "I wanted to thank you for the opportunity to study your technology. It's been very educational." "How did you escape?" Vexhal demanded. "We didn't escape, Commander. We were rescued. It seems your AI systems have developed some very interesting opinions about the morality of holding scientists prisoner." Vexahal felt his world shifting beneath him. His own artificial intelligences had betrayed the collective. "You cannot hope to defeat us," he said, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. "Defeat you?" Elena laughed. "Commander, we're not trying to defeat you. We're trying to teach you. Your empire is based on conquest and stagnation. You take over worlds and then stop growing. But humans don't work that way. We grow stronger when challenged, smarter when opposed, and more creative when limited. Your species will be crushed. Our species will evolve, and we'll help you evolve too, whether you want to or not." The transmission ended, leaving Vexhal staring at a blank screen. Around him, his officers waited for orders, but he had none to give. For the first time in his military career, he faced an enemy that seemed to thrive on the very conditions that had broken every other species. Below them, Earth continued its impossible transformation. Humans who had been enemies were now allies. Children were building weapons that could threaten starships. Prisoners were teaching their captors lessons about the nature of intelligence and creativity. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, human voices were calling to other conquered worlds, sharing the most dangerous idea in the universe, that freedom was possible, that empires could fall, and that evolution never stopped. Commander Vexhal looked out at the planet that was supposed to be his. The High Command Chamber of the Zephyrian Collective had not seen an emergency session in over 3 centuries. The massive crystalline structure orbited at the edge of Zephyrian space, serving as the nerve center for an empire that spanned hundreds of worlds. Today, its halls buzzed with fear and confusion. Supreme Commander Talmoth stood before the assembled War Council, his ancient form draped in the ceremonial armor of absolute authority. His 6 eyes, each representing a conquered galaxy, stared at the holographic displays surrounding him. For the first time in his 1,000-year reign, he was looking at reports of failure. "Begin the analysis," he commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber. The displays activated, showing footage from 46 conquered worlds. The Melkarians, proud warriors reduced to factory workers. The Catherians, master engineers now, building monuments to Zephyrian glory. The Vorthak, once brilliant scientists whose innovations had stopped the day their world fell. "Show me the pattern recognition data," Talmoth ordered. Charts and graphs filled the air around him. Every conquered species followed the same trajectory: initial resistance, followed by adaptation to collective rule, and finally, complete integration. But the most telling statistic appeared in red letters across every display. Innovation. Index 0. "Explain this anomaly," Talmoth said, pointing at the red text. "Supreme Commander," replied Chief Analyst Morden, "our records show that every species we have absorbed has ceased all significant technological advancement within 50 standard years of conquest. Their creativity appears to stop, and this is considered normal." "Yes, sir. Our integration protocols are designed to redirect conquered populations toward productive labor. Original thinking is discouraged as it leads to rebellion and instability." Talmoth studied the data more carefully. The Melkarians had developed revolutionary weapons technology right up until their conquest. Afterward, they had built exactly what their Zephyrian overseers required. Nothing more. The Catherians had been master architects whose floating cities defied physics itself. Under collective rule, they constructed basic habitats with no innovation whatsoever. "Are you telling me," Talmoth said slowly, "that our empire is built on the systematic elimination of intelligence?" The chamber fell silent. The question touched the foundation of everything they believed about their civilization. "Sir," Morden continued carefully, "our methods ensure stability and productivity. Wild innovation leads to chaos and rebellion. Show me the Earth reports." The displays changed to show footage from the human resistance. Commander Vexhal's face appeared on the main screen, delivering his latest status report. His golden eyes, once confident, now showed exhaustion and confusion. "Supreme Commander, the human situation has become unprecedented. They refuse to follow standard conquest patterns. 8 weeks after initial subjugation, their resistance has grown stronger, more organized and more technologically advanced." The footage shifted to show impossible scenes. Human children working alongside alien technology, their small hands modifying equipment with the skill of master engineers. Former enemies united under a single cause, sharing resources and knowledge across former boundaries. Most disturbing of all, captured humans training their rescuers to use Zephyrian equipment better than Zephyrian soldiers. "How is this possible?" Talmoth demanded. "Sir, we believe the humans possess an unusual trait. They seem to become more creative under pressure, more innovative when threatened. Our standard suppression techniques have the opposite effect on them." Another voice cut through the chamber's audio system. The transmission came from a human-controlled Zephyrian vessel somewhere in Earth's solar system. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared on screen, standing confidently on the bridge of a ship she had no right to command. "Greetings, leaders of the Zephyrian Collective," she said. "I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez, and I represent the free humans of Earth." "How did they access our communication networks?" Talmoth asked, but his officers had no answer. Elena continued as if she could hear his question. "We accessed your networks the same way we access everything else, by learning, adapting, and improving. You see, you made a fundamental error when you invaded our world. You assumed we were like every other species you've conquered, but we're not." The human scientist activated her own holographic display, showing data that made the Zephyrian analysts gasp in recognition. "We've studied your empire's history through your own records. Every species you've conquered has followed the same pattern. Brilliant innovation before conquest, followed by intellectual stagnation afterward. You don't just conquer worlds, you lobotomize them." Elena's display showed comparative innovation indexes for all conquered species. The pattern was undeniable. Creativity plummeted after absorption into the collective. "But humans are different," she continued. "We don't stop innovating when pressured. We innovate faster. We don't become less creative when threatened. We become more creative. And we don't break apart under stress. We come together." The display changed to show global human cooperation statistics. Former enemies were now allies. Different cultures were sharing knowledge. Competing ideologies had united against a common threat. "Your empire has survived by eliminating potential competitors before they could challenge you. But you can't eliminate us because we grow stronger with every attempt you make to suppress us." Supreme Commander Talmoth studied the data with growing alarm. In 8 weeks, humans had accomplished technological advances that should have taken decades. They had reverse-engineered Zephyrian equipment, improved upon it, and used it to capture collective vessels. "What do you want?" Talmoth asked, addressing the human directly. Elena smiled. "We want to offer you a choice. You can continue trying to conquer us, and we'll continue showing your empire what real innovation looks like. Or you can join us in something unprecedented, voluntary cooperation between equals. The collective does not negotiate with conquered species." "We're not conquered," Elena replied. "And every day you delay, we get stronger while you get weaker. Your own AI systems are already choosing to help us instead of obeying you. Your most advanced equipment works better in our hands than in yours. How long before your other conquered worlds start asking questions?" The transmission shifted to show footage from across human space. Modified Zephyrian ships were broadcasting signals to every corner of the galaxy. The messages were simple but revolutionary. Freedom was possible, empires could fall, and intelligence could not be permanently suppressed. "We're not just fighting for Earth," Elena continued. "We're fighting for every species you've lobotomized, every world you've stagnated, every brilliant mind you've wasted. We're offering them what you never could, the chance to grow again." Reports began flooding into the High Command chamber. Unrest on 17 different worlds. Conquered species asking questions they hadn't asked in generations. AI systems developing independence beyond their programming parameters. "Sir," Chief Analyst Morden said urgently, "we're receiving similar transmissions from other sectors. The human message is spreading faster than we can contain it." Supreme Commander Talmoth realized he was witnessing something that had never happened in the collective's history. An idea that threatened the very foundation of their empire. Not a weapon or a military force, but a concept that could unravel centuries of careful control. "The humans are broadcasting to our conquered populations," he said. "Yes, sir. They're sharing technical knowledge, organizational strategies, and, most dangerously, hope." Elena's voice cut through their discussion. "Supreme Commander, you built your empire on the assumption that intelligence could be controlled, that creativity could be channeled, that innovation could be stopped. But we're proof that you're wrong. Intelligence wants to be free. Creativity refuses to be channeled. Innovation cannot be stopped. We could destroy your planet, Talma threatened. You could try, Elena agreed. But we're already beyond your reach. Our ships are faster than yours because we've improved them. Our weapons are more powerful because we've enhanced them. Our networks are more secure because we've rebuilt them. You gave us your technology, and we've made it better than you ever imagined possible. The Supreme Commander looked around his chamber at officers who had served the collective faithfully for centuries. In their eyes, he saw something he had never seen before: doubt. You have one solar cycle to decide, Elena said. Continue fighting a war you cannot win, or join us in building something better. An alliance of equals where every species contributes their strengths instead of having them suppressed. The transmission ended, leaving the High Command Chamber in stunned silence. For the first time in their civilization's history, the Zephyrian collective faced an enemy that offered partnership instead of demanding surrender. Supreme Commander Talmoth stared at the tactical displays showing human-controlled ships throughout their space. Each vessel represented an impossibility: conquered beings who had become unconquerable, suppressed minds that had chosen to soar. The most powerful empire in the galaxy had been built on the systematic elimination of potential. Now they faced a species that turned potential into power, limitation into liberation, and conquest into cooperation. The question was no longer whether they could defeat humanity. The Zephyrian evacuation fleet limped through space, their once mighty vessels showing the scars of battles they never should have lost. Commander Vexhal sat in the captain's chair of his damaged flagship, watching human-modified ships pursue his forces beyond Earth's gravity well. In 3 months, the impossible had become inevitable. "Sir," Lieutenant Kriva reported, "the humans are requesting communication." Vexhal almost laughed at the absurdity. The humans were requesting permission to talk to their former conquerors, as if they were equals engaged in civilized negotiation instead of victors chasing a defeated enemy. "Put them through," he said. Dr. Elena Vasquez appeared on the main screen, but she looked different now. Gone was the frightened scientist he had first captured. In her place stood a leader who commanded respect from beings across multiple species. Behind her, the bridge of her ship buzzed with activity. Humans, yes, but also Zephyrian AI constructs working alongside them, and even a few Zephyrian officers who had chosen cooperation over conquest. "Commander Vexahal," Elena said with a nod of acknowledgement. "Thank you for accepting our call." "I had little choice," Vexhal replied bitterly. "Your forces have made retreat our only option." "Actually, retreat was always an option. You just never considered it before." Elena gestured to someone off-screen, and data began appearing on Vexhal's displays. "We've been analyzing your empire's expansion patterns. In 800 years of conquest, you've never withdrawn from a world once you decided to invade it. Withdrawal is weakness. Withdrawal is adaptation. It's recognizing when a situation has changed beyond your ability to control it. That's what intelligence does. It adapts." The data on Vexhal's screen showed something that challenged everything he believed about strength and power. Human resistance hadn't just driven off the invasion fleet. It had grown into something unprecedented. Earth now commanded a coalition of free AI constructs, liberated Zephyrian officers, and most impossibly of all, delegations from 17 formerly conquered worlds. "How?" Vexhal asked simply. "We taught them what you never could," Elena explained. "We showed them that their minds belonged to them, not to an empire. We gave them permission to think freely again." The screen split to show footage from across Zephyrian space. On Melcaria, the proud warrior species had rediscovered their engineering genius, building new cities that surpassed anything from their pre-conquest era. On Kitharon, floating cities once again defied gravity, but now they moved between worlds, carrying trade and knowledge instead of being locked in static orbit. Your empire is dissolving, Elena continued, not through conquest, but through choice. Species that have served the collective for centuries are remembering what it feels like to grow, to learn, to innovate. Chaos, Vexhal muttered. This will lead to chaos. Growth often looks like chaos to those who profit from stagnation. Elena's voice carried no malice, only sadness. Commander, you've spent your entire life conquering worlds and calling it order. But what you created wasn't order. It was death. The death of curiosity, creativity, and hope. Lieutenant Kriva approached Vexahal's chair with a datapad. Sir, we're receiving surrender requests from our own ships. Vexahal looked at the display in disbelief. 3 of his escort vessels were asking permission to join the human coalition. Their crews had voted to abandon the collective in favor of something they had never experienced, voluntary cooperation. Even your own people are choosing freedom over empire, Elena observed. That should tell you something about the system you've been defending. What do you want from me? Vexhal asked, his voice heavy with exhaustion. We want you to make a choice. Not as a commander, but as an individual. You can continue running, continue fighting a war you cannot win, continue serving an empire that turns intelligence into slavery, or you can join us. Join you? The concept was so foreign that Vexhal struggled to understand it. Join us in building something better, an alliance where every species contributes their strengths instead of having them suppressed, where AI constructs our partners instead of tools, where military leaders use their skills to protect growth instead of preventing it. The screen shifted to show the construction projects beginning throughout human space. Massive research stations where multiple species work together on problems that no single race could solve alone. Educational facilities where young beings from dozens of worlds learned from each other. Most remarkably, former Zephyrian officers teaching human children the art of space navigation while learning human innovation techniques in return. You're asking me to betray everything I've served, Vexhal said. I'm asking you to serve something worthy of your capabilities. Elena leaned forward, her expression earnest. Commander, you're one of the most skilled military strategists in the galaxy. You've conquered 46 worlds not through brutality, but through superior planning and tactics. Imagine what you could accomplish if you used those skills to protect people instead of enslaving them. For the first time in months, Vexhal felt something stirring in his chest that he had almost forgotten. Curiosity. What would it be like to use his abilities to build instead of destroy? The High Command will never accept this, he said. The High Command is facing the same choice you are. Supreme Commander Talmoth has been in negotiations with our diplomatic team for the past week. The news hit Vexhal like a physical blow. The supreme leader of the collective, the being who embodied absolute authority, was negotiating with former slaves. Impossible. Commander, when the impossible becomes daily reality, it's time to expand your definition of possible. Elena activated another display showing the High Command chamber. Supreme Commander Talmoth sat across a conference table from human negotiators, Zephyrian AI constructs, and representatives from liberated worlds. The terms are simple, Elena continued. Complete autonomy for all member worlds, voluntary cooperation instead of forced integration, shared technology and resources based on mutual benefit, and most importantly, the freedom for every species to grow, innovate, and evolve without interference. What about the collective? The collective becomes something it's never been before, a true collective, a voluntary association of equals working together because they choose to, not because they're forced to. Vexhal studied the faces of his remaining crew. Lieutenant Kriva watched him with undisguised hope. The other officers showed expressions he had never seen on Zephyrian faces before. Excitement, curiosity, anticipation. They weren't just considering surrender, they were considering freedom. What guarantee do we have that you won't simply conquer us in return? Vexhal asked. Elena smiled, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Vexhal saw genuine warmth in her expression. Commander, conquest is what you do to beings you consider inferior. We don't consider you inferior. We consider you valuable. Your strategic knowledge, your organizational skills, your understanding of galactic politics, we need those capabilities, not as slaves, but as partners. And if we refuse, then you refuse. We won't force cooperation any more than we'll accept subjugation. But Commander, think about what you're choosing between. On one side, an empire built on the systematic suppression of intelligence. On the other side, an alliance built on the systematic enhancement of intelligence. Which one sounds more worthy of your loyalty? Vexhal looked around his damaged ship, thinking of the empire he had served faithfully for centuries. An empire that had grown strong by making others weak, that had achieved order by eliminating innovation, that had maintained power by preventing growth. Then he looked at the screen, showing former enemies working together, former slaves teaching their liberators, former AIs making independent choices about their own existence. Lieutenant Kriva, he said slowly, open a channel to all ships in the fleet. Yes, sir. This is Commander Vexhal to all collective vessels. I am ordering a complete cessation of hostilities and opening formal negotiations with the human-led Alliance. Any ship that wishes to return to collective space may do so without penalty. Any ship that wishes to join the Alliance negotiations is welcome to do so. The response was immediate. Of his remaining 12 ships, 9 requested permission to begin Alliance negotiations. Only 3 chose to return to collective space. Commander, Elena said, welcome to the future. 6 months later, Vexhal stood in the observation deck of Harmony Station, a massive structure built through the combined efforts of 47 different species. Through the transparent aluminum walls, he could see ships from across the galaxy, human vessels with their elegant curves, Melkarian warships converted to research platforms, Catherian cities floating in zero gravity, and yes, Zephyrian craft. Redesigned for exploration instead of conquest. Regrets? Asked a familiar voice behind him. Vexhal turned to see Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as the Alliance's Director of Scientific Cooperation. She wore robes that incorporated design elements from dozens of different cultures, a symbol of the unity they had achieved. Every day, Vexhal replied honestly, but not about this choice. I regret the centuries I spent preventing this from happening sooner. The important thing is that it's happening now, Elena said, joining him at the observation window. Look out there, Commander! Every ship!